My question's to the Premier. Premier, under your watch, Hobart now has the least affordable rental market in the country. Homelessness is soaring and house prices skyrocketing, preventing young Tasmanians from owning their own home. With short stay listings continuing to rise, your government still stubbornly refuses to regulate short stay accommodation. You're also attempting, of course, to pass laws to silence political protests. Premier, your government has spent 5 years diverting public funding to big business, including Liberal Party donors, and underfunding social services. Your government has been regulating for big business and stripping rights away from individuals. And we've just heard there are 10,837 Tasmanians languishing on the elective surgery waiting list. Premier, when will you stop governing for the wealthy and the big end of town at the expense of everyone else? Are you so out of touch that you fail to see that your policies unjustly disadvantage the majority of Tasmanians for the benefit of those who don't need government support?
Thank you. The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Leader of the Green for the question and the right typical Green lines that we usually get, which are not backed by any substance. There's nothing to back the assertions that she's made, but it's typical rhetoric from the Greens without foundation. Now, we acknowledge and we welcome and noted the Shelter Tas and the economics report that was released this week, which does again confirm that we are in the midst of not only strong activity in our housing sector, but also there is, of course, stress right across the housing sector, which we acknowledge. Now, it's important to acknowledge, and it will be a foreign concept, I know, to the Greens and their coalition colleagues, the Labor Party, that there is increased demand across our housing sector, as we've acknowledged. That includes in the tourism industry, which is booming under this government. And our market, our private sector, has responded accordingly. It is important to acknowledge this because it's essential that we not only have more capacity to build additional supply right across that housing sector, but we have a strong, buoyant and confident building and construction sector, which we now have. And when we talk about nation-leading data, when it comes to housing and construction, we have the strongest performing in the country. Dwelling approvals, commencements, completions and work done. The most of that is happening in Tasmania of any state in the country. And in fact, in the year to September 2019, our first home buyer growth.
Order, Madam Speaker, on relevance. I asked the Premier to talk about human beings, Tasmanians, not money, not the economy, and there were serious questions in there that he needs to address.
Yes, well, unfortunately it's not a point of order because I can't make the Premier do anything other than he chooses.
And it is
the puerile point of order and puerile point. Self-evident is the fact that these homes that are being built, and I'll get to what the government's doing, the homes that are being built by the most buoyant building sector in the country are being built by people, and they are being built for people to meet that additional demand, to get more Tasmanians into their first home.
They can't afford to buy them.
Well, they are. We've got the highest rate of first-home buyers in the country. So it is absolute dishonesty again from the Greens. And it is important to acknowledge the role that the private sector is playing. And they are supported by government with our first home builders boost, stamp duty concessions, home share and our Streets Ahead program. But as to what the government is doing, and it is farcical to be asked, or for it to be suggested by the Greens, that we are not responding to the demand in our housing system. When you consider what is an unprecedented investment in our affordable housing strategies, the first and now under the second, 258 million over 8 years on programs to increase access to supply, social housing for people, reducing homelessness for people, improving housing supply across our state for people. It is the largest ever state government investment into affordable housing in our state's history. We've allocated an additional $5 million for immediate action to reduce homelessness and housing stress for those people who are suffering it. It was this government, as I said yesterday, that secured the forgiving of the historic housing debt.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. The Premier is now misleading the House. His government had nothing to do with giving
It was in fact my government, yes, Senator Lambie, as I acknowledged yesterday, played a very important role, and it was the Morrison government. So you're right, there were 3 parties who played a role in that. The 2 parties who had 16 years to do something about it, Labor and the Greens, didn't. Never did.
Until this parliament can just reflect on its behaviour today and get a grip on the way it's behaving, I'll be standing up every so often and just glaring at you all, hoping that you will remember why you're here and what you're here to achieve. And I don't think yelling at each other at the decibel levels we're hearing is appropriate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, noting that and wanting to inform the member who asked the question as to what the government is also doing, in addition to a very buoyant housing and construction sector, is all about providing additional housing, accommodation, secure accommodation for Tasmanians. And it's possible because our budget is in strong shape. It's possible because we do have additional capacity through a strong economy to invest more, as we are doing. And it builds on the work, as I've said, of previous action plans, and I'm advised that as of September this year, our Affordable Housing Action Plans has assisted a total of 1,747 households into their housing needs, including supply of 1,050 affordable lots and homes. So they're the people, Madam Speaker, that the Leader of the Greens speaks about who have been assisted. Now, we recognise there's more to...
Point of order, Madam Speaker. No, this is quite serious. The Premier stated earlier that Tasmania has the highest rate of first home ownership in the country. The data is that first home buyers are the least active in South Australia and Tasmania. So you are misleading the House.
Yep.
Well, he's told a direct untruth in an answer. Does that not matter anymore?
Okay, I'm sorry, that's not a point of order. If you've got accusations, you have to make them a substantive motion. Thank you. And Premier,
Madam Speaker,
Premier,
certainly check the record, and if there is any inaccuracy in what I say, of course. But for the Leader of the Greens to not acknowledge that our building and construction sector is the best performing in the country, as has been identified by economic data and reports, is equally untrue, because you should acknowledge that, Madam Speaker. And that's the support we are giving to small businesses right across the state in a sector that is strong, that employs Tasmanians, and most importantly is building homes for more Tasmanians.
You come back in and correct the record.